Hi guys. So in 1986, when I was 12 years old, approximately in March 1986, I there was a family that had come from Blantyre and they had visited our village in Karonga. So I learned that they were living closer to where my mom lived in Blantyre in the city. So I I did ask them if they could take me to my mom, and they made some negotiations with my grandmother, but my grandmother was not agreeing because she said she had been to town and she knows how life is in town. There's no way I can go and live in town. I need to stay in the village. But I was really tired. I wanted to leave. I wanted to go and find out what life is like for my mom. And I remember telling my grandmother that it doesn't matter what, even if I'll eat sima without lettuce, as long as I get there. So anyway, the day came when this couple was leaving. I followed um the time that they were leaving. I met them at the bus station. My grandma followed me and she gave 17 kwasha. Was it 17 kwacha or 17 tambala? I think it was tambala, yes. 17 tambala, which was half price for the bus, which means because I was still regarded as young at 12. So it means the full price was around 35 tambala. So my grandma paid the fee, and that's how I left. I vomited the whole, because from home to go to the other side there is a Chiveta escarpment, so it's the road is winding, and it was my first time to travel by car, so I vomited throughout. I was very sick. I was vomiting and vomiting and vomiting. But what was most also significant this day was when I told my grandfather that I was leaving this day, he just said a prayer, say have a nice journey, and he gave me um, a few bananas to take with me. He said, "Go with my granddaughter and eat the banana." I didn't even eat because I was vomiting throughout. We arrived at the first city in Mzuzu where we um, still stayed in the bus because we left in the afternoon from Karonga, Kuchirumba, but to go through the mountaineering road, it takes time. And yeah, so anyway, 2 days later, I arrived home. I found my mom. She was living in a very nice, I would say, because I had just come from the village, and where she lived in a four-bed house, and there was like a hand dug well outside her house. It was well covered, but yeah, we were getting water to water plants, and she had a lot of fruit trees at the back, just like home, like um, including pears and stuff like that. She also liked growing things around the house. It was a beautiful place, and it was in a like a hedge, fenced brick, corrugated iron, cement, and it was four-bed house with the doors front and back. It was amazing. It was really good from yeah, from what I can still remember. And so yeah, and I also met my younger sister because my mom had the two children with my stepfather. The first one passed on when he was just a baby when they were still living in Zimbabwe, but I have my half sister who comes after me, so that's when I met him there. So, but one thing happened though when I arrived at my mom's place. That's when I experienced like a first rape attempt by a man that was working for my mom. It was just an attempt, but from what I saw, definitely it was attempted um, rape. I wasn't raped at that point, but it was an attempt, physical attempt, but it nothing more than that. Like I'm saying, because of what I saw and because of what happened. Yeah, I didn't tell my mom about that because I had just come to the town. I was so surprised. And because I couldn't speak the language, I could hear some of the things, but I could not understand everything because where I come from, we spoke a different language. In the city, it was a different language, a different life. And I'm a village girl, I've just arrived. And someone older, quite older than me, attempting to do what they were attempting to do. I was really shocked. I tried to scream, but at the same time, I, you know what people who are in power do to people. But yeah, thank God, nothing nothing else took place. And so yeah, so that was really like I started with fear and I was thinking, like, even when I'm sleeping, thinking that maybe that man might come in this room or something like that. And thank God, after a few months, he left. He left the job. Whether he left or he was told to leave, I'm not sure because I wasn't involved in the decisions that were made. Yeah, so I went around with my stepfather to, he was looking for schools for me because it was second term. It was around March. Um, it was second at the mid of second term. Every school was saying no, there is no space in standard 8 now. She can start from a 1 year back. I was like, no way. I was already in standard 8. I need to write an exam. So yeah, went to another school. That school accepted me to go in standard 8, but because of the differences, like I'm talking about language and everything was just new. It was, yeah, it was hard to keep up with things. And in the city things are done differently, so everything was really changed. When I came to the city, I didn't have shoes, so my stepfather took me to my uncle's workplace, and I arrived there. I've just come from the village, walking barefoot as I was. My uncle gave me 5 kwacha. 5 kwacha, it's really 0.001p, point zero p. It's something very little, very insignificant. And I managed to buy, but at the time it was enough money to buy a pair of plastic shoes. So the pair of shoes was 5 kwacha, but my stepfather negotiated for me to buy at 4.95, 4 kwacha 95 tambara, and I got my change 5 tambara, so I had some money. Yeah, those were my first shoes, but then it was hard to wear um plastic shoes. It was really, my feet couldn't fit in because when you haven't been wearing shoes, your toes are, you know widely spaced because you've been walking using your toes, and you know how toes learn how to grasp, to grip and all. So yeah, but anyway, eventually we got into that. And when I was teaching, I was even wearing a little bit of high heels, not too high, but them blocks at least. I can't wear them now, but yeah. So yes, my uncle saved me from walking to schools barefoot. In town, everyone was wearing shoes. How could I have gone in class without shoes? So yeah, when I went to town, I realized that actually my mom didn't have much power in her home. Um, she was someone who was very quiet and calm. I can't remember a day when my mom raised her voice. I really can't. Um, because of the way I left home, because of the conflict that I had with my grandma, going around, going to my father's places and coming back and all, when I came to the city, my stepfather also didn't like me. I always he referred to that to say, oh, I was not getting along with my grandmother, so what can he expect? Something like that. So I was a black sheep in the family for a very long time, and yeah. So at some point, then I was also joined by my older sister. So she also came to the city. We struggled to find school fees. For my sister, some of the things my stepfather was giving her, like school uniforms, and sometimes he would buy her books, but not me. So I used to also go into people's houses, people that I was told that they were related to my father, to go and beg for book, and you go maybe 10 times before I'm given any penny to support myself. But I do definitely appreciate all the support that I was getting, because I know it means they were also having to fend for their own children, and their children comes first. But it was really hard. I remember wearing um, uniform that even started getting torn, because I stayed in standard 8 for some time. We did not have school fees most of the times. So when the schools start, we'll go to school, because everyone can go to school for free at the beginning. Teachers will remind us about school fees, and some people will pay before even the terms start. But we didn't have any source of money. My mom, like I said, she was powerless, and she didn't have a job or anything like that. She relied on my stepfather's property that he had bought when he came back from Zimbabwe, and that's what was they were using to feed us when they get rent at the end of the month. So it was a it was a hard a hard life. And yeah, things just got worse and worse. So my stepfather sold the house that I talked about that was good. He sold and went to live in one of the small houses that he had bought for renting people. Now we moved to a two-bed house, and it wasn't enough for um 5 people, 3 girls, and my mom and my stepfather, and the living room. And like I'm saying, it was quite small space to be all of us in the same space. Even the spare bedroom, the second bedroom, was not enough even for one person, because the main bedroom was okay to have a bed, but the small one, because it was small, even a bed would fit. So my stepfather made a makeshift house just connecting to it, but it was too temporary, because even when it was raining, the water would come in through, because it was just summer. It was quite, it really looked dangerous. At some point, indeed, it fell, but when I wasn't there, so nobody was living in there. But yeah, so we continued to live in there. It was also a time that we were now teenagers, and because of lack of fees, we could not proceed with his school to go to secondary school. So each year we're coming back to the same school to re-register, but then when it comes time to pay school fees, we are chased. We stay at home until we look for money to go and pay. If someone, yeah, excuse me, if someone gives us something, then we go back and pay and then restart, which meant that we're missing out a lot on lessons and things like that. And then so we did that for several years. We were not progressing at all. We just stuck at once, because we could not go to secondary school. There was no one definitely to pay for secondary school, or even evening schools, because you still had to pay at the time. So then eventually my brother had come back, because when my father died, when before I was born, and they were young, some of my two brothers, at some point they were um, split, and they went and lived with my father's side, but they were not living in the village, they were living in towns. So because these videos are not about my brothers and him or my siblings, they're about me. So we're not talking much about that. But when they came back, one of my brothers came back, our first brother. He came with some money. The money was not enough, but still he went with us in our schools. Me and my sister were in different schools. So I went to Namalimwe Primary School in Blantyre, and so I went with my brother to, because he wanted to go and negotiate that here's the fees. Can you take them back so that they can be able to sit for an exam and all of this, all of that. And yes, the teachers accepted, so went back to school, we wrote an exam, and boom, we both were selected to secondary schools, boarding secondary schools. These are the government secondary schools. So yes, there would be costs, but minimal. Than if you've not been selected and you are looking for secondary schools on your own, because we would not have afforded that, because my brother was also not working at the time. So boom, we've been selected to government secondary schools. My brother took me because my school was far, in a Providence secondary school. We went in a bus. He dropped me there, but with nothing. He managed to get transport. At the time, he had started working at a petrol station selling petrol, so he was getting paid, but low income. And then he also, in that process before we left, after I've hang on, yes, before I went to secondary school, he moved us out of my mother's home, and we rented a home not far from them, but separate. So I left, went to boarding school. At the end of the year, I came back, and yeah, with nothing, it was really hard, but um, there was hope, because now we had a home where I was happy, and yeah, but still, um, there was my brother was also, he was someone who um wanted us to get an education, and so he was too protective, and that too protective, it showed up in many different ways, which were not also um helpful, especially in my opinion, they were not helpful. But anyway, so I finished the first year. Life at Providence Secondary School was okayish, but was not okay, because people who had money, they had alternatives. When they go to school, they will carry alternative food, biscuit, whatever, whatever, whatever. And you don't have nothing at all. It means you are relying you are relying on the food that you're being given at the dining, and food that we're being given were most of the times um beans that have weevils, that have overstayed, and they have animals inside it, weevils. And when they've cooked, you can actually uh, crunch on on weevils, and you realize, hey, I'm eating the actual animals. And yeah, but what can you do? So that was life, and mostly we're eating beans, maybe for 4 days a week, boiled beans with nsima for 4 days a week. And one day they will say it's in the evening, or they'll say it's rice and meat. But how do you expect the rice cooked in secondary schools to taste? And the meat, you are like, where is the meat? It's just the like water, which is supposed to be soup or something, and the bone, or you're like, if you get anything in that water. So was hard life, but anyway, we were happy. It was a nice school in terms of teachers, where they knew what they were doing. And I remember I competed on a quiz, because each form has to have a quiz. I ended up being the second. The first one was a friend who were together in primary school as well, and she took the being the quiz representative for our form. We closed, went back home. Then I came back to school because we used to have a holiday in between like 3 months, but within those 3 months, something happened. When I went back to school, I realized that I was pregnant. So I realized that I was pregnant because number one, people were talking about it, and several people came to me to say, everyone is saying that you are pregnant. I was not sure. I didn't I didn't know. I was just hoping, I guess. And because I had admitted to one of the girls to say yes, then everyone, that girl actually was just asking me as a spy, although she came as if she wanted to help. And yes, she did suggest things that she wanted me to do, but it really wasn't my thinking in the time. So she went back and she spread the news that yes, Lorraine had confirmed. So everybody was just insinuating because the girls' secondary school, Providence, especially, as it was a good school, but there was a lot of mocking where for no reason people would just talk down on you as if you are trash. So being pregnant just made that type of relationships worse. And yeah. And I remember there was a time I had a friend. She had said she was unwell. So I went to the dining representative and asked her to say, "Oh, so and so is unwell. Can I take her food?" She said, "Yes." I took her food to the hostel because food was not allowed in the hostel. So I brought the food. I gave her. When I gave the food, she had said someone told her that she should go for a certain assembly meeting she shouldn't miss. So she, after she ate the food, she went to the this emergency meeting. So when the dining representative saw her at the meeting, she said, "Why did you lie that your friend is sick when she's not sick? I saw her at the meeting." I said, "No, she asked me to take the food, and as far as I know, she's sick because she didn't attend classes in the morning. She's not well." She said, "No, if she was unwell, she wouldn't have been at that meeting. So you do the punishment. You need to pour water in the whole dining and mop it." And water was very scarce. So I went to draw water from a hand dug well somewhere where we used to go and wash ourselves and bath there every morning because water was not coming in our taps most of the times, and the toilets would be full up with poo all day without flushing because there's no water. And then we'll rotate room by room to go and clean. It was terrific. I've never lived in such conditions where poo is tamed as if you're gonna eat it later, but that was the life at secondary school. So even the poo, because it would be full up, and you think the last person who was the last person in the toilet, and how did this heap end up there, you wouldn't know. So when we are cleaning and people were experts, they had the sticks. They would be pounding like you are like you're pounding maize or stuff like that. But let me finish that story of saying you pour water. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. So yes, I had to pour water and clean the dining, mop it, and for something that I was trying to help a friend who was unwell. But that was the kind of treatment that some students would do for no reason. But actually, I knew that I was being punished for whatever the thing that everyone else was talking about already. But so yeah, at the end of the year, I went home. But what also happened at home, that's a different story. Thank you for listening.